So I want to talk about winter storage. I've got my winter storage article. I'm not going to read it. That's way too tacky. But basically, when you go to put the car away, you want it all set. So the next season, all you have to do is go out, turn the key, start it up, and drive it away. It's clean, it's gassed up, it's got fresh oil. You know, the top isn't all crunched. Anyway, so when you're looking at where to store the car, you know, sometimes it's next to your house, sometimes it's in a remote garage at your mother-in-law's, at your son-in-law's. It just depends. So you've got to take into consideration the location where it is, access. Are you going to be able to get to it or not? Traffic around it, you know, get a minivan parking next to it with kids every day, opening doors into it. The humidity, not a problem in California. Oh my gosh, those cars are so beautiful. Animals, meaning mice, rodents, that's the problem, you know. And any owner maintenance that you think you might be able to do to it during that time. So you take all of those and factor it in. And there are certain things you want to do with certain systems in the car. So, you got to have insurance. Got to have insurance, because even though the car isn't on the road, well, anyway, I mean, it's imagine Anna, I can't remember her last name, Greek, and she was from here in town, and she stored her car in a barn that a guy taking the center support post out of earlier in the year, figuring he could pack a couple more cars into the barn, but it unfortunately snowed heavily one night, and the whole thing imploded. Yeah, Pete, you can record this meeting. So anyway, site location and insurance are both important. The engine, to protect the engine, you want to store it with fresh oil. You go to put it away, change the oil and filter then. Maybe you don't have to change it again throughout the season. I mean, you're supposed to change the oil and filter every 3,000 miles. Anyway, you want to do that. And when you, before you close the bonnet, expend an entire can of WD-40. Just spray everything underneath the bonnet. It leaves with a sort of a tacky coating, and the aluminum won't corrode. The nuts and bolts won't rust. It's really nice. Now, it smells like a WD-40 factory for a day or two, and when you start it up the next season, you know, there's a little whiff of something that's left, but it's really helpful to do that. Your ignition system, what's there to do there? Well, if you were going to store your car for, you say to yourself, well, I'm going to store the car for 3 years, and you got points, you might choose to put a piece of paper between the points, or at least have a little tiny narrow strip to clean the points before you go to start it when you come back around to it, because the points do corrode. They do corrode, especially if it's damp. The cooling system, you want to have it filled with antifreeze. At least up around here you do. I guess in California you don't. It doesn't seem to get that cold in the part of California I was in. You got to have a 50-50 solution of antifreeze. Oh my gosh. I mean, we've seen so much damage. The cylinder block will burst. I've seen them burst. Radiators burst. Heater matrices burst because there's water in it, not antifreeze. So, oh my gosh, don't wait too long. Fuel is a real messy thing. I used to tell people, you know, fill the tank up. Absolutely fill the tank up to the top so you don't get any water that wants to come in, and then put stable in it. But now with the alcohol and the gasoline, I'm not sure. There's 100 different products out there, and I'm not in favor of one or another. Last time I stored my car, I just drove it just drove it in and didn't think about it. I expect it'll start tomorrow when I want to get it going, because my regular car's in the body shop. Go figure, and I got to drive my MGA tomorrow. They're supposed to be pushing 70 here. The clutch, if you're in damp storage, the clutch can we talked about this probably last week. The clutch can freeze, can rust to the flywheel or the pressure plate. You can get it loose. It's just a hassle. So sometimes some people say, well, you know what you really ought to do is go out there and start it up every now and then and move it back and forth a little bit and just exercise it. You can make a case for that, but usually once you put the cover on it, you don't want to do anything more to it. But just be aware, a brand new clutch especially will rust. Once they're older, there's oil and stuff in there, and it doesn't rust so easily. The suspension, what to do about the suspension. You can make a case for moving the car once or twice during the winter so the tires are in different positions. And some people say, oh, I'll jack the car up, I'll put it up on jack stands. Well, okay. In that case, put the jack stands underneath the rear axle and at the very outside of the A-arms up front, so the car is laden on its suspension as it should be, as it usually is, and not distressed with the suspension hanging in an unnatural position for 6 months. Jim Kercheski, who used to work for me, oh my gosh, back in the 70s, 80s, early 80s, he called me up a couple years ago and he says, I've got the perfect way to keep mice from getting in the car. I said, okay, I'm game. Talk to me about it. And he said, 4 pizza pans in the big pizza pans. In the center of each pizza pan, you've got the jack stand. You got the car up on jack stands, and into each pizza pan you pour used motor oil. Okay, that sounds good. I bet that does keep the mice out. Well, what a hassle! But if you got a terrible mice problem, you got to figure out how to take care of it. And rodents are the problem. Of all the problems you have in storage, rodents are the problem. Brakes, nice if you roll it once or twice because of the brake pad rusts to the front rotor. I've seen it happen. Eventually, it'll come loose when you push the car 4.5 or put it in gear, bang it back and forth. But then there's a lump of something still rusted on the brake rotor, and it sounds awful. Tears up the brakes real fast. So just move it a little bit, maybe. The batteries won't survive the winter, not in freezing. So you've got one of 2 options. One is take the battery out and put it someplace where it's warm, or hook up not a constant charge, but one of those battery tenders. I think that's probably a trade name. But you can hardwire that to your fuse box and have a plug right behind the radiator diaphragm and plug it in anytime. Once in a while, I've heard of those things, shorting out or overcharging the battery. I mean, they're not perfect, but boy, they certainly are nice. They keep the battery at full charge, which is a specific gravity of about 1250 throughout the period of the winter. Because if it falls down to about water or 1000 on your specific gravity, it'll freeze, and the battery the side of the battery will break out, and you won't be able to see, or you won't be able to get the battery operational again. So one of the 2. Let's see. We're over to the body. Just put it away clean. Put it away clean and put the top up. You have to put the top up because over the period of the winter, that top is plastic. Call it what you want, but it's plastic, and it tightens up. And if you have the top on the car during the winter, then it can't tighten up. It'll get snug. It'll get real snug, but it won't get impossible to put up, which can happen when you have it down and not erected for the season. The interior is all you want to do really is clean it, but the mice like under the bonnet and the mice like the interior. So you've got to come up with some method of keeping the mice away from the car. I had a woman one time, she said, I put mouse traps in my car. It's like, oh man, if you don't check it for a week, you've got a mouse that's becoming one with the carpet or something on the inside. I usually run a perimeter around my vehicles with Victor mouse traps. Love that big game hunting, and keep them out like that. But boy, they are the danger, and that's why I had that wonderful picture of that mouse nest inside the air cleaner on the information that I sent out. So that's about it. We've got a list, an article about it on both of the websites, UniversityMotors.Ltd.com and UniversityMotors.Online. I think it's on both of those sites. And I just talked to Marty today, and she said, well, do you have a checklist that goes with that? And I said, well, yeah, as a matter of fact, we used to offer what we called our October special, and we would do all of this stuff. We'd put the mothballs under the bonnet and in the interior and in the trunk to keep the mice away, change the oil, grease it, do all that, vacuum it out, service the battery, do all those kinds of things, expend the can of WD-40 on the engine. So we'll put that checklist along with there too. Anyway, I'd like to hear.
But I want to be able to hear it.
Face to face.
I'd like to hear from anyone out there in MG land, what you might do that I didn't cover for winter storage, long-term storage.
John,
Yes.
we get peppermint and cotton balls, put it in bowls inside the car underneath. It's peppermint oil, keeps the mice away. Dryer sheets work too, but you mentioned putting the cars on jack stands. We do that. And then we take, since my car's in a carport, so the sun gets on it occasionally, we take giant garbage bags and wrap the tires there, and plus it helps keep the moisture off the brakes too.
Okay. Thanks.
John,
Yeah,
you can spray your wire wheels with WD-40 too.
Yes.
Right?
John, Gary Greenspoon.
Yeah, Gary.
Hey, did you mention inflating your tires? I usually go to like 42 PSI.
No, I didn't mention that. I've heard of that before, I guess. That must be to keep
Flat spots. Flat spots.
Yep. Overinflate. All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Hey, John.
Yes.
I've been using Irish Spring soap because I do not like the smell of mothballs and all that other stuff. And that seems to be working. You can get a lot of bars of Irish Spring soap, and that works pretty well.
Okay. My understanding is, I mean, I know very little of the natural world, but something that the mice are heavy duty on being able to smell what's going on, and there's certain odors, or once you get a heavy odor, they know what's going on, so they just stay away. And there are two types of mothballs. There's the old-fashioned naphthalene mothballs, which wrinkle your nose, and then there's the other ones that are paradichlorobenzene, which when you smell them, you go, I know that smell. I know that smell. And it's the smell from men's urinals, those white cakes in the urinal. And so between the two mothballs, I'll take the naphthalene any day. Any more ideas? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got one. It's Martin from London, Ontario, where thankfully we don't have snow. Couple of years ago, I picked my car up from storage, opened the door, and I saw someone was asking this in the chat, and I saw white fuzzy stuff on the seats. And the person whose barn it was, it's actually a big Quonset hut. I said, I've got some funny white stuff. She said, oh, it's probably mold. Well, I guess it gets a little too humid in that place during the season, and so that was it. Thankfully, I brought some of the Lysol wipes with me. I wiped it down and took care of it. But from that point on, I've bought this stuff. It's basically from a dollar store. You can see it's got little sort of plastic balls or something in it, and it dehumidifies. You rip the top off the thing. It cost me all of $1.25 Canadian. Put it in.
That's only 25 cents here.
At most. And basically it absorbs the moisture. And so when you pick it up in the springtime, the little white pellets are gone. This is all filled with water, and your car's not moldy. So I'll sometimes put in a couple during the season, and it seems to take care of it all right. So I think between that, and if you do have any, I find that those wipes do a good job of killing off anything on it, and you're not getting it in your lungs.
What's the brand name of that dehumidifier?
It just says Damp Trap. So I'll show you there. So it was, I went to the local dollar store and they had it. I think people buy it for cottages and that sort of thing, cabins.
Yeah,
I think
very
in the
cool.
US they call it damp red.
Damp red is a trade name, yep.
Thank you.
John, hi, John, this is Doug.
Yeah.
What I do, when I park my cars in a garage with a cement floor, I have a section of like indoor outdoor carpeting. It's about 6 feet wide, and you can buy this like at Menards or Home Depot. It comes in you go there and you buy about a 15-foot section of 6 foot wide indoor outdoor carpeting, and you use that as a moisture barrier between the concrete garage floor and the car. When it starts getting cold, I back the car out of the garage, put that section of indoor outdoor carpeting down, and then park the car on it for the winter season to help as a moisture barrier. So it's indoor outdoor carpeting. It looks like very thin AstroTurf or something like that, and they sell it in big rolls, and you can have it cut off in 15 or 16-foot sections. It's about 6 feet wide, I think it is. So it's wide enough for the car, and buy a section that's long enough.
I thank you. I forgot to mention that if you're on a concrete surface and you think that it might wick, damp, which it almost always does, you put down a plastic sheet, but that indoor outdoor carpeting certainly looks nicer. It doesn't ball up and move around.
And you can, when you're just at the end of the winter season or when it gets warm, you back the car out and shake the carpet out and then roll it up and kind of store that over the driving season so it's ready for next winter season.
Okay, thank you.
You talk about mice. Where I store mine, I'm out in the country.
Where'd I go?
I got a 5-gallon bucket, and I've got maybe about 3 or 4 inches of oil in the bottom, and in the inside of the bucket, maybe down about 3 or 4 inches, I'll put a ring of peanut butter, and I've got a board that's up there. Believe it or not, it works. I got about 2 or 3 mice in them now.
I believe you.
Yeah, that's our method for chipmunks around here. We do water and sunflower seeds, and they just go running right in and benevolently drown.
Hey, they can live outside in the trees and the bushes to their heart's content, but not in my garage or in my MG.
If you guys don't want to deal with all the smells and the mice you got to throw away, I'm going on my 3rd winter now, using one of those car pockets is what they call them. You drive onto a piece of tarp basically, and then you zip your car into it, and you throw some of those moisture wicking things you guys had shown earlier, and the mice can't get in. And like I said, I'm out in the country too in a barn, and lots of mice, but 3rd winter, and I've never had any problem with them.
Do you have a blower on yours that keeps it inflated?
No,
or is it just sealed up?
It's just sealed up.
Okay.
And I put a link in the chat section. I think Rhino sells them. A bunch of different people sell them.
Okay.
And
thank you.
It's worked for me.
Great.
Hey, John.
Yes.
John, Bob Dalton, Gerald Dalton from Louisville, Kentucky.
Yes,
I spent 10 years. He spent 10 years in the motorcycle business, and when we would put customers' motorcycles away, we used to have a problem with the exhaust systems rusting out. And what we would do when we stored them was we would run them hot, park them, and then immediately put like paper towels in the end of the exhaust pipes to keep that cold air. We were up at Northern Ohio, so it would keep that cold air from rushing in there and causing condensation, and consequently, we weren't responsible for rusting exhaust system.
Very good. I should have mentioned that, but that's when you go to, so I get, excuse me. My suggestion is when you go to put your car away, run it hard, run it for half an hour, get it really hot, so there's no moisture left in the exhaust system at all, and then park it. And some people say, oh, it's good, I start my car up every 3 weeks, and let it idle. It's like all it does is trap all that moisture in the exhaust system, and unless you let it run long enough, then the to get rid of all the vapors, it's gonna cause it to rust faster. But anyway, thanks for that comment about the plug. Plus, it keeps the mice out of the tailpipe too. So.
Hey, John, earlier you mentioned gasoline and the fact that gasoline these days has ethanol in it. And I was actually just doing some research on this today because I just found out yesterday that one of the last suppliers of ethanol-free gasoline in Canada was no longer supplying it. It was Shell here in Canada. They were still they still had some ethanol-free gas at the pumps up until about a year ago, I think. And I was unaware they stopped producing it. So I ended up finding a website that actually lists by state and by province gas stations that have ethanol-free gasoline. Now,
Pure Gas, is that Pure Gas?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Yes,
now,
it's an app on your phone, and it's also available on your computer.
So that kind of begs the question, though: how can these smaller gas stations get their hands on ethanol-free gas? They're probably buying it from the big guys.
Oh well, the gasoline is delivered. This is my understanding. Gasoline is delivered to the gas station as gasoline, and there it's mixed with the ethanol. I may be all wet. I don't. But anyway, it's just it's all has to do with government legislation.
Yeah, that's right. Now, do you think that it's a big deal to get alcohol or ethanol-free gasoline?
Well, it used to be when you stored your car, you'd put in stable, which is some kind of alcohol, and it would grab the moisture that was available, settling in on the top of the gasoline, and it would hold it in suspension and just burn it when the next season came. So we already have ethanol, we already have alcohol in the gasoline. So do you have to put any more in? It doesn't make sense. I'm unclear.
Okay. Good to hear your take on it.
So the key is
I've got something to address later on when you get onto other topics.
Okay. Okay, Rudy.
John, we're on the topic of ethanol in gasoline. I used to live in Brazil, and they had to convert the cars to make sure that the rubber parts within the flow stream of the gas were capable of handling ethanol. And if you didn't have that, then the rubber bits that we have, which if they're not made ethanol resistant, will eventually decay much faster than they would normally.
Yeah, sometimes instantly, like if you use a neoprene seal under a fuel sending unit on an MGA, it grows to about that big, and all the gasoline runs out of the tank in your customer's house. Yeah, I'm aware.
You've got to make sure that if you're using ethanol additives in your fuel, that the whole rubber delivery system is ethanol proof.
Yep. Yeah, Viton is the Viton and Gates green hose that seems to handle us. So thanks.
Hey, John, Gary here again.
Yeah.
I used to put stable in religiously, and then 2 seasons in a row, when I first drove the car, and I thought it seemed I would have needed a tank of gas to clear it, my carburetor at a stop, my revs would increase tremendously. I would have to adjust my idle a bunch of times, but when I didn't use the Stabile for the last 2 years, I didn't have that problem.
Interesting. I don't know the chemistry of it enough. I've read this art, tried to read the book, Old Cars, New Fuels, but I don't remember that it addressed anything about long-term storage.
It wasn't long-term, it was only like 3 or 4 months. And anyway, so I don't use the stable anymore.
Okay.
Good seeing you. Oh, when you began your show today, there was a beautiful MG behind you. I saw that as the image. Now you're back in your office.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my MGA. So yeah, gonna drive that tomorrow.
Can you keep that in the background now?
Oh, I can. I can play around with it. I've got lots of options here.
Janet, if you can get that in your background, it's better than your boring office there, please.
There. How's that? I'm not
the other one.
Oh no. You want this one. This
headlights. It was so synchronous. The 2 headlights. No, it was beautiful. Photographically, it had the two headlights on either side of you.
Well, that's only because I didn't move my head to cover one of the headlights.
No,
John.
there you go. I'm singing now. I'm singing now. Hang on.
Okay. All right.
John,
there you go.
The other one's better, John. The other one's better because it shows you wearing your pith helmet. That's the one you want, man. Come on.
I asked for this. I should be able to keep it. Let's keep this for a bit. Thank you very much, John. This is beautiful.
Okay.
John, Guido here.
Hey, Guido, how you doing?
Good. How often should you grease the fittings?
As often as you change the oil. The 6 up front, you mean?
Yeah, does it have to do with mileage?
Once every 3,000 miles, once a season. I mean, if you're putting 20,000 miles a year on the car, then you got to be changing the oil a little more frequently and greasing it a little more. But anytime, I mean, that's just a rule of thumb. You you're down there, you got the front end of the car up a little bit to get it to drain. That's greasing.
I put maybe 2,000 a year.
Jeff Powell greased his every single time that he changed the oil. And when he restored his MGB the first time, he's got about a 1970 blaze. When he restored it the first time, there was hardly any wear on the Kingpin at all, and he had almost 100,000 miles. Just a testimony to if you maintain it, it doesn't fail.
What's the size of the grease fitting nipple?
I don't know. I normal. I don't know.
Nothing special.
No, just the kind that you buy at Napa on the end of a grease gun.
Hey, John, Antifreeze.
Regular dirt fitting.
Tom, I'll take Tom Schroeder here.
Good to see you, John.
Hi.
Hey, I don't know if you remember my white MGA 1961 when your visit out here to St. Paul and Minneapolis. We took you to Waldman. Good to see you again. But I'm wondering, I've got pools of oil that drip down in my wire wheels from the rear brake drums, and it's brown oil. It doesn't look like clear brake fluid, and I don't have to top up my master brake cylinder very much.
No, but you should have. You want to check your differential. So that the shaft that goes into the hub has got 6 splines on it, and they fit together, but it's not perfect, and the oil wicks out. The oil wicks out of there. There's supposed to be a freeze plug in there. If you take the spinner off and you look down inside, you shouldn't see the splines. You should see a freeze plug. I can't tell you what size freeze plug that is. If Barney's on, maybe he can tell you, but it's about 1.25 inches. You probably go on his site and find out what size it is. Or if you don't want to use a freeze plug and do it the proper way, you can buy, it's about 1.5 inches. I can't tell you exactly, expandable rubber freeze plug. Push that down there. It's got a nut in the middle. You tighten it up, it expands it, and it'll keep the oil, which is wicking down the between the hub and the half shaft and getting out on your wheels. That'll take care of that.
And
Thank
are
you.
done? Oh, just asking.
So I'm going to hit mute all here for just a second. And now I want to ask if there's anyone else who's got any more comments about winter storage. We got a lot of new ideas here.
Hey, John?
Yes.
Antifreeze?
Okay, I was thinking about everybody's talking about the winterization, what to do, what not to do, especially putting up tailpipes and stuff. I would suggest that when they're doing this, to make a list of what they've done. Because when they have to open it up for the next season, if they don't remember where they put all this stuff, and all of a sudden they can't understand why the car isn't running. Oh, yeah, I stuck something up the tailpipe. So I would suggest to make a list for check in and check out.
Well, given the age that we all are, that makes a lot of sense. I put an anti-run-on system on a 69 MGB, put an anti-run-on valve on it. Guy did not have overdrive. We used the overdrive switch. Easy, kill it. You pull that switch and bam, it just kill it. So the next year he calls me up all ranting. Yeah, I spent thousands of dollars and the thing won't start. And I said, did you kick your anti-run-on switch the other way? Oh, he says. So yeah, you forget. He was a lot younger too. So yeah.
Don, antifreeze question.
Yeah.
When I was a much younger person, we used to always change antifreeze every winter before I'm there. How long is that antifreeze good for in your car before you have to change it?
We had this long answer. We had this complete lubrication. And it grew. Every time we'd find something that was constantly wrong with the car, we'd add it on the lube so that you catch it. Like the front shocks come loose on an MGB. How would you even know that? But you go out, if you haven't tightened up the front shocks on your MGB, you got to get a deep 9/16 in a long bar, and you pull it tomorrow, and you go, oh my gosh, I got half a turn out of each one of those, So I never got to the point where we changed the antifreeze. If I was still in business, we would be doing that. And I don't know how often it should be. I mean, the tire guys are on you for every 10 years of the tires, or now it's 8 supposedly. I thought tires were supposed to be getting better. So I don't know, but I know that a lot of the antifreeze we used to drain out was just nasty stuff. Especially from the heater matrix. Oh my gosh, you could put a garden hose into the top, put a hose into the top of the heater matrix and have it blow out the bottom all over the distributor, of course. And
you ever seen this like jelly?
Well, maybe, but I remember it just running red for 20 seconds with a garden hose on it, until it ran clear. I mean, it's just, get all that silt in there, and sometimes if you mix antifreezes, and I don't know enough about antifreezes to know which ones not to mix, I just use green old-fashioned ethylene glycol antifreeze.
Oh, the new stuff was what they've got for the Asian cars. It's not good for iron block.
Okay. But how often should it be changed? I don't know. There's an acidity. You can buy strips, and once you go off a 7 on your pH, I think it becomes acidic. But that eventually that causes problems. So I don't know if it gets down to 6 or 5, I don't remember. But I remember having strips and testing antifreeze. So that's one indicator that it's no longer satisfactory for use.
John,
Yes.
well, I just looked it up here quick. It says every 30,000 miles or 3 to 5 years.
Okay. We have a number.
So every time you do your complete lube, add the antifreeze.
Yep.
John, you just bought antifreeze and it tells you, was it 10 or 13 years? I don't believe that. I'm go along with every couple of years I change it. It's not that expensive, but the new antifreeze tells you 10 years, lasts for 10 years.
Mine doesn't stay there that long. It'll never last for 10 years because it doesn't stay in the car that long.
Yeah.
That's good.
While you're doing that, change your brake fluid.
That was part of our complete lubrication too. Absolutely. You just bleed it. Each corner got like 4 or 5 strokes. Just do it. We used to bleed the clutch too, but then we had so many clutches fail after bleeding it that we stopped bleeding clutches as a matter of course. But yeah,
John,
go ahead.
I've got a tester for the antifreeze.
You've got what?
A tester for the antifreeze. It's a old ball tester. You just suck it into it and it tells you what it is. And if it's up to the temperature where I think it's going to be safe, stored away, I leave it be. If not, well, it goes out.
Yep, one of those little floating ball things. So you can let some of the antifreeze out and put in some new antifreeze in and so forth. There's a couple of, there's the solution, which should be 50-50. And that takes you down to like -30 or something. I mean, it's really, it gets colder than that. Oh my gosh. But one of the other things is that just the dirt, the silt, because sometimes they really stinks. And then the other thing is the pH. So there's a bunch of things about the antifreeze that I just never attended to it. Again, I closed my shop 7 years ago now. 6 or 7, and if I was still running it, we'd be changing antifreeze during the complete lube. Absolutely.
I have an older gentleman and we'll just drain it all out and put it fresh in the spring.
Seems intense, but hey, and draining it out, that's, if it's an older car and there's a drain on the radiator, hey, great, it works. The block drain never works. But the radiator drain. But if you don't have that, then it's this nasty, you gotta yank the hose off and it just goes everywhere. Mess. What other comments do we have about winter storage?
Hey, John.
Yes.
They have testers for I will but also.
Here, I'm just gonna, just a second, I just had to mute all, okay, and we're gonna go back to Pete.
Yeah, they have testers for the brake fluid also. You can get those on Amazon. They're not very expensive. They're like maybe $4 or $5.
To test what?
To test if there's too much humidity in the
okay,
brake.
all right, okay. Interesting, okay.
Hey, John?
Yes.
Also in the springtime, I'll take the plugs out and spin the engine up without any, without running it, obviously, just to get the oil pressure up.
Yes. Sometimes if you just don't even pull the choke out, it won't take, so you can spin it a little bit. That's a real good idea too. But getting the oil pressure before starting. I'm writing down the stuff I have included in my article so I can put it in my article and pretend it was all my idea.
Wasn't that bringing gasoline into those combustion chambers though?
Oh yeah.
Washing your walls down.
Oh, not if you're only spinning it for 10 seconds, 20 seconds. I don't think that's the issue.
I do it with the plugs out too to take the load off the engine.
Sure. Well, oh my gosh. But yep. Okay.
John?
Yes.
Neil here from St. Catharines, Ontario.
Have you ever heard of wrapping? You know how they wrap yachts for winter when they take them out?
Sure.
Is it safe to do that with the car?
Sure. Although I'm not sure how you're gonna get underneath it and wrap the wheels and everything like that. I mean, I don't understand how you do it physically, but there's no problem. As long as you put a desiccant in there. The other guy from London had dry me off.
I wrote that down. Yeah. The fellow I've got that's gonna do it for me, he's going to lay it out, and I'm gonna drive on it, or I'm gonna push it because it won't have the battery. And then he's, I don't know how the wrapping works, but that's how he's gonna do it for me.
Maybe he puts it in an envelope and sucks the air out. I don't know. And then, of course, if you're gonna do that, I heard somebody say the word battery. Yeah, you gotta just, you don't wanna wrap it up with a live battery in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, John.
I have several of those bags.
What's the cost of that? Neil?
I'm
How
sorry?
much is he charging you? How much is he charging you for the wrap up?
Oh, it's a friend of a friend, so I'm only paying $200. He says it's generally 5 to 6.
Well, that's the price of one of those capsules that would blow fresh air.
Yeah.
And you could use it year after year. It's a proven solution, and it would blow fresh air rather than trapping moisture. I'd probably rather just get a capsule myself. But
I have one that doesn't need the air.
I looked at one from England that has outside with the fan, but they've never answered me on my emails. So
car capsules are made in Indiana, to the best of my knowledge. So that just go. I don't get. Does anybody have?
I've been putting my cars in a bag for a long time. They're you basically zip. It's like a Ziploc. You just drive it in, and you put the white powder that sits in a tray underneath it. You unhook the battery, take the battery out, and you zip it in, and it comes out exactly the way it comes out. It comes in the fall. The rotors aren't even rusted a bit.
Yeah, you can make the cost of one of those envelopes, not the ventilated ones, but the sealed ones. What's the cost of that approximately? Do you know?
Depends on size, but they're about $350.
Okay, all right. So.
And I've had my cars in it now for about 15 years, and I've reused it every year, and it's well worth the cost of the envelope.
Okay.
I have a collection of cars, and I have one for each one.
Okay.
Let's make a suggestion, John.
Yeah.
That's the best way to go, because what the other fellow's talking about, he's talking about shrink wrap, and we do that on our boats. And if you don't get the right person that knows what they're doing, they use a heat gun, and I could just see them melting your convertible top underneath. Because they do it to the boats. They take the decals out. The heat on those things are intense.
Okay.
The other thing is you can't just put them out in recyclable. You got to pay to get that taken away. You can't put it in recyclable anymore.
Okay.
So
it shrinks. And it pulls on the top, and the convertible blows and all of that. I've seen a guy try that down south.
That's not a good choice. Not a good choice.
What's the name of the bag?
I'll see if I can find the information and tape it in for everyone.
So the two types of bags, there's this one sealed one that Mr. Vane is talking about here. There's the sealed one with a desiccant on the inside. And then there's another style that has to be plugged in, and it's constantly blowing air through so that it stays well ventilated and doesn't end up getting a spot of moisture in it, except of course what gets blown through, but then later of course it blows dry, so it goes through a
chain. Those, and they weren't as good. They didn't hold the moisture back as well as the one that's sealed.
Okay, all right. Well, for $350 or rounded up with shipping and everything, $400 or something, it's that sounds like a real good deal. So it's
lay down on
if you want to. I was just going to say, if you want to avoid the single-use plastics, can you just use paper bags, or is that not a?
Yeah. Yeah, the 10,000 dryer sheets all taped together. Yeah.
Somebody put in the chat session a link to car cover shelters, car pockets, which may be what you're talking about. It's way down at the bottom of the chats.
Yeah, car pocket sure sounds like a correct one. So we've got we're into our for our first hour here. There's a lot of questions over in the chat section, so I want to get over to that. But since we're about probably at around our maximum here, we've got 181 right now. Who's farthest away? From where? I don't know, from the other side. So
well, I'm in. This is Tim Smith. I'm in London, England. I was the guy who was in Lagos the other day. So please, yeah, it was for my mother-in-law's funeral, but it was a great anyway. But so I'm in London, England. Please don't change the time because it's 5 to 1 in the morning here.
Okay. Okay. Well, unless someone's farther away than Tim, you get the award twice from 2 different spots. That's pretty good. All right, so we're going to begin our second half here, and that's the chat section. I've got to make another pitch.
Quickly, before we get started with the chat stuff.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, actually 3 different questions. I've already asked the chat for one part of it.
Okay.
Can you bench test a transmission?
No.
Okay, the other question is, which I've talked to Pat G about this. With brand new brake hoses for the front brakes, new brake cylinders in the back, as well as new brake pads, a new master cylinder for a dual line system, and still having the brake, it's really hard to push on the pedal and stop the car. It takes almost standing on it to stop it.
What year? What model?
1973.
MGB?
MGB GT.
That's weird. Now, remember that the brakes do not feel like modern brakes. You know, that you do need a certain amount of pedal effort. Sometimes people get seduced by the modern cars, but if it's to the point, well, when you jump on it, if you're running down the road at 30 miles an hour and you jump on the brakes like somebody just rolled out in front of you with a wheelchair, you ought to be able to lock up all 4 wheels. The car should go into a full skid if you jam on them as hard as you can. Okay.
No, not in this car.
Okay.
John,
all right.
He left out the part about the car sat for 10 or 12 years.
Exactly.
I think he's got stuck calipers.
Actually, we have braking power up front because when you spin those wheels really fast and you step on the brakes even lightly up front, it'll slow them down really fast. But we think that the brake pads are either hard or the rotors and the brake pads are glazed over time.
Hey, John,
they were pretty much brand new when we put the car in storage.
John, I changed a master cylinder last year or 2 years ago and a 73 MGB. And I noticed when I took the new master cylinder out for a ride, the brakes were much harder. Now I can lock it up, but it was noticeably different. And I don't know if that has anything to do with that.
Well, the bore diameter doesn't change. The bore diameter doesn't change. So you know, you can push the pucks back into we used to do this in our complete lube. I keep coming back around to the complete lube today, but during the complete lube, we take one pad out, take a pair of great big screwdrivers, pump until the puck came out, until it was sitting 3/8 of an inch or so, half an inch away from the brake rotor, squirt the outside of it with brake fluid, lever it back in, push it out, push it back in, push it out, push it back in, do that 3 times to each of the 4 pucks in the front, and you knew that the brake pads were working okay. And then you bleed it after that because that would churn up all kinds of yucky, nasty stuff down inside the brake cylinder and inside the brake calipers. So it's odd for them not to work. It's really odd for them not to work. So
My father and I have had a technician come and check out the pads when we drove the car to his place.
Yeah.
And we noticed that the brake calipers are in fairly good condition. There's no rust surrounding any part of the shoes are brand new. But they're also 10 to 12 years old.
So if the puckster are moving, if they're free to move, they're free to move, you got to take a pad out and depress the pedal and see if they move. You know, if they're free to move, then it has to do with the brake pad.
Okay.
Have to. Now there's like 4 or 5 different kinds of brake pads, and some people buy the competition one, and those don't work until they're hot. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, and are you in Los Angeles?
No, we're up in Storrs, Connecticut, right at the University of Connecticut.
Oh. My daughter had squealing brakes in LA, and she took her car to Darren. I don't know what Darren's shop's name is, and he put some kind of pad on there that worked great and doesn't squeal. I drove it this past week, but I don't know what kind of pads they were. Something, a V8 pad. I'm not exactly sure. And
there are some good brands out there. We did also notice that the brake master cylinder has been replaced because the original one was so rotted and corroded it was leaking out of the bottom of the reservoir and out onto the car itself.
So it's the 2/3 of the braking's done in front, 1/3 in the back.
It feels almost like we're getting maybe 2/3 from the back and almost nothing up front. That's what it feels like.
So either your rotors are glazed up, or the pads are, something. Yeah.
And there's no servo in this car.
Correct.
There's no brake servo.
Correct.
John, Joe Gibbs here.
Yes.
One thing I didn't hear him mention was that the flexible line between the front and the rear. Because if that's plugged up, he won't get much in the back brakes.
But
they all have been replaced.
Yeah, he didn't say that initially, but he did say later that he thought 2/3 of the braking was happening in the back. So thanks, though.
Hey, John, I have a suggestion too. I have a 75 MGB, and I know when I bleed brakes on that, the little switch that screws into the bottom of the master cylinder, I have to remove that. Somehow, according to the manual, it allows the proportionating valve to float back and forth in there and center. I have adjusted, gone back, put pads in, and done nothing more than just take a screwdriver and push the pads back, and all of a sudden one of them would just pop like there was no resistance. I take the car for a drive. All of a sudden, I got really spongy brakes. I go home and I remember that little trick. I unscrew that proportionating valve, or that little switch is what it is, a little plastic switch. As soon as I unscrew it, pump the brakes a couple times, put the switch back in, I got perfect brakes again.
I can't imagine why that works the way that you've explained it. And on his,
it's a miracle. That's what it is.
It's a miracle. On his,
it's also in the book.
It's okay. That's to reset. Because it's a shuttle valve. It isn't a proportioning valve. It's a shuttle valve. And when you've got more pressure front or rear, this little piston slides fore aft, and then trips the brake warning light switch on your dashboard. Another red light to come on for you to say, "I wonder what that is." So it's that, and it doesn't prohibit the free flow of brake fluid for the front or rear circuit. And on his, it's a separate brass block located immediately underneath the master cylinder. But you always do the cheapest, easiest, simplest stuff first. So unscrew that switch out of your safety valve, and jump on the brakes a couple times and screw the switch back in. I mean,
John, as for my car, oh, can I speak? With my car, we took out that sensor because it was leaking like brake fluid past and out of the sensor. It was coming out of the top where the terminal comes out.
Right.
So we ended up taking out the sensor itself. We left the wiring to it, so if anyone bought the car, they could fix that part themselves. And we put a bolt in there and threaded it with the pipe wrap, but for gas, so it's a tighter, cleaner fit.
Another option is to put a little ball bearing down in there, and then the bolt comes and seals against the ball bearing because it comes down to a nice V. Yeah, or a copper washer underneath it. But it doesn't matter if it leaks internally. So anyway, I can try that. I mean, I can't imagine what a difference it would make. I'm still of the feeling that it has to do with the coefficient of sliding friction.
Also, a choice bolt, use stainless steel. They will not rot that way.
Okay.
Yeah, we had one that rotted out directly from the fact that it was cast iron bolt that was threaded perfect for it, and it sort of rotted. So we ended up taking that one out and putting stainless steel. Not a problem since.
Great. Okay.
John, it's Tim Smith in England. Just a thought: is the pedal seized on its pivot, so that the pedal itself is hard to push if it's been stored for a long time? I had that with my first car, which I bought in 1980. I put it back on the road 2 years ago. Couldn't get the brakes. Pedal was seized in the pedal box.
Interesting. Doesn't sound like that's what's going on, but sure.
But it meant you had
to coming off. You know, you could put the tip of your shoe underneath the pedal and pull up on it or something.
I just couldn't get brakes because I just had to push so hard, and the pedal was just seized solid. I thought I had fantastic brakes, but I didn't. Yeah. Okay.
Well, hey, sure, anything's possible here. So that's another. You always do the cheapest, easiest, simplest stuff first. So you know, you should have half an inch of pedal for free play, with your thumb and your forefinger, middle finger, tongue. It should just move really easily. So yeah. Thank you, Tim. So I want to get over to our chat section here. And first of all, I get to make another commercial pitch. Please go to the website, go to my website and press the little PayPal button that says help John afford to be retired. And that helps me pay Marty, and it helps me pay all the expenses that come along with this. So that's it. So, all right, first one, Wayne. Thanks for joining us at GOF West. It was a good time. I had a real good time out there. Vanquish, I can't hear anything. I hope you can hear something by now. Mr. Vins, I just bought a couple of 1157 LEDs to use in my front turn signals on my 72B. I also bought an electronic flasher. Should this work okay? Yes.
Oh, good. Because I have good back brakes. I mean not light brakes. I mean lights. All my lights are working fine, but I'd like them to be a little brighter in the front. So I got these.
Okay, but remember, we had back in February, we had Blair Weiss on, and he talked all about LEDs. And I made the mistake with my daughter's car. I went to Napa, bought these LEDs that were like fantastically bright, and I put them behind the red lenses. I bought regular 1157s. Well, it turns out that the white LEDs only put out, I don't know, they don't put out any red light or something or other. So there are different, you can buy them in amber and red and stuff. So just be okay. Anyway, but
okay, I just wanted to make sure that I guess I'll need the flasher because there's not enough. It may not flash as well if I don't put the electronic flasher.
It won't flash at all.
Oh, okay.
It just won't flash at all. There's not enough current going through this system to make and break the bimetal strip.
But the lights in the back, the brake lights and the turn signals in the back should work all right with that flasher then. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. Let's see, Marty. Marty's putting a link up here for the winter storage. Judd, club members Mark II generator went bad, we think, on Sunday's mountain drive. He made it back to my place. We recharged his battery so he could get home. The symptom was the ignition light stayed on and the battery is too weak to start the car. I can do the tests in the TD shop manual, but what are your cheapest, easiest simplest recommendations. So Judd, you take there's 2 wires on the control box. Do you have any idea, Judd, are those wires real distinct, the color on them, or is it all just old murky wiring?
This car is immaculate, but I really didn't pay real close attention to whether he maintained the original color-coded wires.
Right.
Probably did, because everything else is right.
Okay.
But I can tell which one is the field and which one is the whatever's not field.
Right. So you take those 2 wires off the control box. You take F, field, off, and right next to it, you take the D off. But there's 2 Ds. One goes up the ignition warning light. One comes from the generator. The one that comes from the generator is the heavier. It's yellow and yellow with green. And you start the car up, bring it up to 1500 RPM, put those 2 wires together for about a second, pull them apart. It's either the 4th of July or nothing. So if it's a great big spark, the generator's working great. No spark, generator isn't working. Therefore, if the generator's not working, you got to work with the generator and get him operational. The control box can still be bad after that.
That was my concern.
But rather than going through that long list, and then of course the cheap trick is to bring the car up to 1500 RPM, turn on the headlights, pull one of the battery clamps off, and instantly you know whether it's charging or not. I mean, it's not charging in this case because the battery went dead. But when you're not sure if it's charging or not, because you're not sure if you can trust the ammeter, 1500 RPM, lights on, take one of the posts off on the battery, not on an alternator car, just a generator car, and everything gets kind of trembly. The headlights aren't constant; they're winking kind of as the regulator's working. But that's a real easy way if the whole system's charging or not.
One other quick question on that, because you got an MGA behind you. I believe that's a Mark II also. On the I've changed the generator on the TD lots of times. The adjusting arm is on top. The generator is right there where you can get to it. How do you change the the adjusting arm is under the generator? Do you have to do it from underneath?
With difficulty. No, from on top, unless they got one of those shrouds on the engine. Oh my gosh! So you just need a 9/16 ratchet to loosen up the big nut on the adjuster strap, and then a 1/2-inch socket and wrench to loosen up the axles. The 2 of them on top, maybe the one on the adjuster strap. Push it down, pull it back up again. Make sure you get it nice and tight. How tight should that fan belt be so that you cannot spin the generator pulley anti-clockwise by hand, obviously with the car off.
Okay, we'll do it. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, John, don't move on yet, because this is the part where I want to jump in.
Yeah.
So I'm having a similar problem to what this gentleman just described. With also, I am also a Positive Earth generator car.
Okay.
So if you recall back in 2022, when you were up at Peterborough for MG22, I was having a problem with the battery not recharging when I was driving around on one of the events.
Okay.
My battery completely drained and I wasn't able to restart the car. You did a couple of diagnostic tests and suggested that I replace the voltage regulator, so the control box, right?
Yes.
So I've done that, and this past Sunday also, I was out on the first long drive that I've done since replacing the control box, and it was cold, so I was running the heater, I was running my headlights, I was just really testing this thing to see if it was working. Felt great, it was going great, and then all of a sudden I felt a little bit of a sputter, and I turned off the heater, and then a little bit later. I turned off the headlights, and then a little bit later, it just completely conked out.
Oh boy. So it could be that I misdiagnosed it while we're up there. That's entirely possible. It could be the new part you've got isn't good. It could be that the generator this time has taken a hike. So after it's charged, after it's charged, and you can start it up. Just like I told Judd, go to the control box and you got a yellow with green and a yellow. The yellow goes to the D terminal. There are two yellows. One's very, very heavy gauge, one's very light gauge. We're dealing with the heavy gauge yellow one. And we're dealing with the yellow with green that goes to the F terminal. F for field, D for dynamo. So start it up, bring it up to, crank on the idle a little bit or something, just bring it up 1500 RPM. Take those two wires, the yellow and the yellow with green, and we're full fielding this thing. We're putting those two things together, holding it for a second, breaking it, and it's either the 4th of July or nothing. And if it's a huge flashy spark, which is up 120 volts or something, but that's why you don't hold it together more than it's about a second. You know that the generator's okay. So
Okay.
One other.
And then what happens after that? If I'm getting a spark,
if you're getting a spark, the generator's okay, the control box is bad.
John, I've bought I've had some problem with my A as well. And I get my parts from Cecilia, and she generally has pretty good stuff. But I got two control boxes. One of them right from the factory was no good. I took it to my generator guy. He tested it all out. And he said, Greg, this is brand new and it doesn't work. So there's that problem too.
Thank you. Speaking just off the subject completely here, I heard that Cecilia was in the hospital.
Yes.
Some sort of blood infection.
Yeah, she stepped on a nail, went through her shoe, right through her foot, and I guess she has diabetes, so she doesn't have the best circulation. So she didn't really think anything of it until it got really bad, and she ended up going to the hospital. They were going to amputate a couple toes off of her foot, but they decided that maybe we could let's play around with the medication first. So that's kind of what happened, and she's back to work and home now.
She probably had something to say about taking her toes off too.
Yeah, she was not too favorable about that choice.
Oh my gosh. Well, anyway, yeah, I haven't talked to her, so I just heard that at GeoF West. All right. Anyway, back to the control boxes. So even the new control boxes, very often they say clean the points before use. That means take a piece of 600 paper, fold it over on itself so it's gritty on both sides, and find the points. There's a point on the regulator and a point on the cutout, and just drag that through there. Just make sure that they didn't get corroded up on their trip across the Pacific. Judd, what were you going to say?
Well, just tangential. While we were working on this car, a buddy who's a real MG guru type guy was saying that it's positive ground. And I said, no, this car's not. My MGA is not. And I'm correct on that. But he said they all came positive ground from the factory. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. They were positive ground until 1968.
Okay, well then I guess I've been converted.
After 1934, maybe, I got called out by Norman Knock from British Car Specialist so many years ago. He sent me a note, and Lucas went from negative earth to positive earth about 1934, and it stayed there right up through 1968, when all the cars in the world apparently went into the same conformity. But the generator doesn't care. The generator control box just don't care.
Right.
They're real stupid. And
well, you have to flash the generator to get the polarity right, and that's just a real quick, easy thing to do.
It's the first, always the first, Rui, that's the first thing you do, is jump between D and between F and A on the control box. The connectors, thanks, Judd, for reminding me. They're right next to each other. You can use a penny as a screwdriver, piece of wire, paper clip, anything, and just jump those two terminals. Spark, do it twice so you're sure that you did it once, and then you must have some indication from your ignition warning light that it's not working.
No, that's the weird thing. The ignition warning light is off now. So I was having the problem with the old control box. The ignition warning light was on until really, really high revs. Now it as soon as I even touch the accelerator, the ignition warning light goes off.
Okay, so the next thing in my bag of tricks, in my hat, I'll pull out something else. If the fan belt is too loose, it may not squeal, but the dynamo may be freewheeling, and it just won't produce enough. You said it was under heavy load. You had everything on kind of, and it might be that it couldn't make the electricity.
Yeah, but okay, and then eventually with everything off, engine running, driving on the highway at 60 miles an hour, it cut out again, and that was it. Then I had to ride on the back of a tow truck.
Oh gosh. Anyway, check out some of the stuff and you can call me tomorrow, next day, when you get someplace on it, and I'll help you through it some more.
Okay, thanks.
John, I have two comments on this as well.
Yes.
This is Rob Tedrow. I have an early MGB. It has a generator in the control box.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear you say this, but because I have 60-year-old harness, make sure all the connections are clean and you've deoxed all of that. Because I had a little bit of a concern when I was restoring mine last year. But the other thing is I had a control box that I thought went bad, and I tore that whole thing apart. And where you talk about the contacts being cleaned up, in addition to that, they effectively crimped. They used a mechanical connection on the shunt resistors on the bottom of the control box. They're not soldered in. And there was so much rust in that, it changed the resistance and the control point in the box. And I just wonder if maybe the new ones, if you're concerned about the contacts being corroded, you could have, if it's the same design as the old ones, you're going to have corrosion in that area as well on those shunts that sit on the bottom side. Very
interesting. Swamp resistors. That's
correct.
What they're called. I don't even know what that means. Swamp resistors. Yeah. Very fascinating, Rob. Thank you very, very much. That's I'd never considered that before as a like take it apart, clean it up, put some solder on those connections. Sure. I mean, it's the cheapest, easiest, simplest stuff.
Those are wire wound resistors, and if the wire breaks on them, then they're worthless.
Right.
But I found a source in Ohio that sold wire wound resistors, so I put a new one in. But then I had to clean everything up to it. And like an idiot, I crimped it back on instead of soldering it.
That's funny. The 2 bobbin ones, that's an 80 ohm wire wound resistor, but I don't know what the resistance is on the swamps on the 3 bobbin ones.
If I remember right, they were 50.
Okay, I'll try to remember that.
Yeah.
Hello, John.
Yes.
Hi. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi. This is weird because I've been watching your videos all weekend. I feel like we've been hanging out. I hate to play the hijacker here, but my question got skipped. I have some questions about my steering rack in the TD.
Yep.
Which I have right here.
Okay.
So I have a clunk on the passenger side. I thought it was an inner tie rod. After tearing half the car apart, I got this out, and it's all apart. And there's a place for a second damper over on this end.
Yes.
And I was thinking maybe I could do something with this to put a little pressure on the rack, because all it is just banging around in here. It's not bad.
Sure, you could. Do MGAs have one on the other side? Hey, I gotta here's this. Sandy, I'm not cutting you off. I am cutting you off. So unmute yourself again. I had some background noise, not from you. And
I'm back.
I wanna say that we did that once, but it's a, you know, it's a, you gotta drill it, you gotta be, careful with it's a weird thread. I can't, yes, yeah, the bottom line, yes, you could dampen that over there on that other side, yes.
Okay, because
So, and the other trick, since you've got that there, we take the rack, and the top of the rack, of course, is flat, except right where you're going right down the road, and it was.
Yeah, I've seen your video like 4 times already this weekend.
Right, so we take that to the machine shop, and they'd lay it on their big table sander, make it all flat again, So, yep.
I also would like to note in here, there are grooves in here where the spindle goes in.
Yes.
Is there supposed to be some kind of packing or O-ring?
Isn't there a grease zerk on there?
Well, that's down here.
No, on the entry there for the, you could.
Nothing.
Okay,
Nothing
so
like
there's
that.
a felt seal. There's a, obviously whether you put was a felt seal that goes in there. I remember trying to find rubber O-rings that would fit in there just to keep it from leaking, because it you get full to a point, and it wants to leak out there. But that spiral in there is just to afford lubrication to the pinion.
One last question. Is this supposed to be very, very hard getting onto these splines? Because it's going to take a lot of pressure.
It's supposed to be. I don't know if it's supposed to be, but it always is.
But it is, okay.
It is, and that's, you don't put that on. You don't put that on until you get the car all back together and you get the steering wheel straight. You get the front end aligned. And
really?
Then put the flow relief on, because there's the steering wheel only goes in one location.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So put the flow relief on after you've got the front wheels close to aligned.
Oh, well, how do you put this on when it'll certainly make getting this whole contraption back in a lot easier, because this hangs up on the engine block. You just tap it on, you keep banging on it. It won't do any damage.
I'm risk losing some of your nice black Rust-Oleum on that and wire wheel the shit out of those male splines.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all right, that's a good tip.
Okay.
Thank you,
John. Sandy's question got missed because he posted it before you came on, and this happens almost every week. And so I didn't know if you were aware of that, but you might mention that if people post their chat question before you become host, you, John Twist, won't be able to see it. The rest of us can.
Oh, isn't that bizarre? Okay.
Hey, John.
All right. Thank you. Let's see. Don Nelson says, "Hey, John, can you address what other winterization steps you've done? As I've just done, pulled off the SU carbs so that they can be rebuilt. Expect the carbs will be out for 4 months or so. So far, I've stuffed a sock in each manifold opening and sealed off the fuel line. Or pull the sock back off and just douse it with WD-40. Just make it swim in WD-40. That's what I would do."
Thanks, John.
Yeah, you're welcome. Pat G. Pat Garrity, I met Pat out at GOF West. The answer to the Mark II with a dead generator, check the wiring and the brushes. Brushes wear out. That's the when you touch the yellow with green and you get a big flashy spark, you've tested the wiring and down to the generator and the generator. So yeah, he's very correct on that. Question from San Diego. Oh, this is from Pat again. What is winter? It's what you're missing. It is so sad. I mean, it was like 80 degrees out there, cool in the shade, and everything, not hardly a cloud in the sky. Here, oh my gosh, it rained yesterday. The leaves are changing color. You can't go outside without a sweater. Real Nice. John, I picked up the photo of your daughter's GT, just a minute. Also, a cool little key fob. I will mail the stuff along with the Zenith carb needles. Oh, thanks, Pat. Thank you very much. They're in the center console of your truck. You put them there specifically so that you could find them and then forgot they were there. Thanks. Appreciate that. I've heard you should overinflate the tires to about 50 pounds to avoid flat spots. That's what from not Victoria Island, Vancouver Island, Gary Greenspoon weighed in and suggested that about overinflating the tires. I have heard of that before. Barry Jacobs, change oil at the end of the season or in the spring, at the end of the season, because when the oil sits for a long time, oil becomes acidic, not very acidic, but it becomes acidic. And I've got some bearings that look like they had worms that work their way through the bearing. I mean, it's uncanny, and it's from acidic oil and sitting for 20 years, you know. But always change we always have fresh oil in the summer. Let's see, John, I got a TD during the last Zoom. You discussed the importance of the rubber mounting at the rear of the gearbox. There are 2 rubber pieces and a rubber washer. How do you replace these? With a lot of difficulty. You gotta take, you know, you can take the seats out, the carpets out, the tunnel off, which I think sometimes is the floorboards out, and then you can jack up the back end of the gearbox. There's a little dangly thing that comes down, and there's a cup that comes up underneath it to keep the whole rear end of the gearbox from lifting. And then the blocks are in there. So if they look like they're really beat up, oily, collapsed, gooey, from years and years and years of oil washing against them, it's time to change it. Your clutch will feel a lot better for it. But yeah, I don't think you can change it from underneath. I think you got to get on top. Well, both. So, Henry, hello from Calgary. It's snowing here today. Henry, I had a really good time in Calgary, real good time in Calgary. Oh my gosh. And then here I am flying to LAX last week, Sunday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm bringing up my bag, which has still got YYC on it. And the guy next to me has got YYC on his, which is the code for Calgary. I'm just unbelievable. Gerald Dalton, don't buy a cheap battery tender. That is for sure. Walmart sells a nice one for 40 bucks. I have 3 to keep my bikes and cars connected when not driving. The batteries last a long time with that battery tender. So, so here we got Mr. Dalton suggests spending 40 bucks from Walmart, which in his terms here is not a cheap one, but I have heard of them failing and going on to full charge. Now it's not much of a full charge all the time, but some charge it'll run the battery dry.
Yeah, the model that I have is called a Never Start. It's yellow and it self-regulates 4 amp is what it is.
Okay, that much, 4 amps? I know it's so wonderful. We had a customer who he had a Sprite. He had painted it in Imron, black Imron, so many years ago. This thing was just perfect, and he couldn't get it done, so we brought it down to the shop and we did the last little bit of stuff for him. And I said, your battery's just scrap. You know, it won't. You know, it needs a jump almost every time you start it. He says, I can't spend any more money on the car. My wife's just going to murder me if I spend any more. I can't spend 100 bucks on a battery. So, you know, it's like, okay. So, you know, he had adult ADD and he hooked up the battery charger because he was going to drive the car, then forgot about it. And when he remembered a week later, the battery had boiled dry. All that acid had come out, ruined everything. All this beautiful work that we'd done, Oh my gosh, but he was in the insurance business, so his car was completely covered. So we got to do it again. But anyway, yeah,
John?
that was just a regular charger. Yes, sir.
So what you just described was a reason to buy a tender rather than use a regular charger intermittently.
Yes.
If you avoid that problem, is there any advantage to using a tender? I mean, if you do turn the regular one off regularly and on, does it matter?
Well, if you've got, the problem is, you know, to use a real battery charger, you got to have a hydrometer, right? And you check, you squeeze and you check each cell. You know, are you 1210, 1225, 1240? And when it begins to slip, you go, oh, I should charge it a little bit more. Or you're just winging it and you say, well, I'm just gonna, every Sunday, I'm just gonna put it on for 15 minutes. You know, you're just shot in the dark. Those battery tenders are so much better because it just, especially at this age, all of a sudden it's like 3 days later, you go, oh no. You know, so by that time that it's ruined the battery, and then all that gas that comes out of there is carrying a little bit of acid with it. So do a lot of it.
Thank
John,
you.
another bonus to a tender is the difference in temperature. When the temperature goes down, it sort of regulates itself and will pick it up a little bit. And when it gets a little warmer, it'll pick up on its own and
Okay.
keep it more regulated.
Okay, and another thing with the battery tenders is you can wire it directly to the bottom fuse in your fuse box. Well, I'm speaking for an MGB. Top fuse on a Midget, 2 fuse box. Well, anyway, the brown side of the circuit, or the purple side if you want to put a fuse in it, on the fuse box, and just hardwire it right underneath the bonnet. And then you got a plug that all you do is open up the bonnet and put your extension cord into it, and bingo, you don't have to go undo the battery and move the seats and all that kind of stuff.
I have one coming right out from my B, right up on the platform on the back behind the seats.
Okay.
And it works fine, just have it sticking out.
Sure.
Plug mine into my cigarette lighter.
Okay. Makes sense. That's fused. That's on the purple circuit. That's good.
I just find it easier and better going right directly to the battery because it can identify the battery needs better.
Perhaps.
Just a quick note on battery chargers. Most new battery chargers are referred to as smart chargers, which will do the same thing as a battery tender, but when your battery's dead, will give it 10 amps to bring it up to charge quicker than a tender will. So if you buy a newer battery charger, it's almost redundant to have a tender unless you have a bunch of vehicles that you need to keep it on over the winter.
Okay, thank you. I was surprised when the one gentleman said that his tender was putting out 4 amps. That seemed like a lot to me. I was thinking of the first set of battery tenders were down around 1 amp. You know,
and that's just a tender. But if you buy a charger, you can get them up to 10 amps or better, and they will do the whole float and everything and not overcharge your battery like the old style will.
Thank you.
But a totally dead battery with like 0 volts, you need the old style dumb charger to be able to get something in it before the newer style chargers will do anything with it.
I have noticed that. Thanks.
Will a tender protect it at 20 below 0 so I don't have to put it in the basement?
A tender will keep it charged so that the fluid in the battery will be at the correct reading and won't freeze. If the battery goes dead, you'll freeze it and break it. That's but
the question is, how about 20 below? So I guess I'd read the instructions on the back of the pack. I mean, almost always it gives you some sort of operational range.
20 below's pretty
That's
cold.
That's cool. That's
Yes, it
pretty-
is.
That's
It
like-
happens in some places.
That's when it's time to move south.
Says Greg from Texas. So, okay, I've got a convertible 75 MGB. What conditioner do you recommend to keep it from drying out and cracking? That's the convertible top. I assume that's what you mean. And I don't know. I don't know. Is there anything you can put on the top to keep it from drying out and or cracking? If you're in Texas, probably not. I mean, the heat and the sunlight down there are pretty intense. What's the silicone stuff that everybody used to buy?
Yeah, it makes everything shiny and sticky.
Armor All.
Armor All. Thank you, Fred. Thank you. Just senior moment. Couldn't remember. Yeah, Armor All. That's, I don't know if that infuses something that gets lost over a period of time, like I don't know. Maybe that's the. I know they make that claim. Armor All does. So
There's
When I
another
bought
one
my-
called Back to Black that might work.
Back to Black. Is that available from Napa or something? Or
Yes.
And AutoZone.
Okay, so it's a real
I thought
popular.
I thought that stuff was more for plastic and not a soft top.
Well, a soft top is plastic. I mean,
It's vinyl.
Okay, I'm not a chemist, so I don't know, but vinyl
What's Pat G showing?
is a type of plastic. Kind of.
So to
He's
answer
using
your
that
question,
303.
Oh, look at this.
303.
Aerospace. There you go.
This is something my brother turned me on to. He uses it to keep his rubber raft supple, and a raft is supposed to have a life of 10 years. We've been rafting every summer for the past 20 years, and he attributes it to this stuff here, which I've started using on the vinyl and tonneau cover and top on my MGs.
Okay. Does it say on the back what's in it? Probably not. Oh, wait, I can read it here. Warning to the citizens of California. Yeah, may cause reproductive harm. Yeah.
Do not drink.
Phenyl polyethylene glycol ether. So it's glycol.
Okay.
Or contains glycol.
303. Okay. So we got a couple products here. Hey, that's fascinating.
Hey, John.
Yes.
Need to make a mention here. Like I say, I was in motorcycle business, snowmobile business. We used to have customers that would spray Armor All on the seats of their snowmobiles.
Ooh.
And a year later, being that they were slippery anyway, a year later they would dry out and crack. And we were replacing snowmobile seats left and right because the Armor All would cause that vinyl to dry.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
also, when I bought my car, the previous owner had filled up the trunk with leather conditioner. So you might want to check and see if you got vinyl or if you got canvas or if you got leather. And I'm sure that all three of those require different things. Garage is probably the best thing, and ignore all the rest of the things.
I just wanted to make a comment on that 303 makes a really good leather cleaner. If you've got leather seats that have hardened and almost become brittle, just literally buy a case of that 303 and spray it on there like every few days throughout the entire winter, and you'll have soft leather seats in the spring.
Thank you.
John, this is Doug. The 303 makes a lot of products for boats. It's a marine. You can get it like West Marine and places like that. So there's a whole bunch of 303 products, and they're more expensive, but they're worth it. I've used them. They make a variety of spray-ons and applicants. 303.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
John, I have a 1969 top that when I bought the car, it was gray. It was supposed to be black. I used the back to black and it made it dark, but I also bought a product called VLR, vinyl leather rubber. And it was effective. Again, easy to get at O'Reilly's or AutoZone. And I don't know which one did the trick, but that top loosened up. I was able to stretch it, and it restored the color. So I was pretty happy. I'm just not sure which one did the trick.
Usually it's
DLR.
the rear window that goes translucent or almost opaque, you know, or the tears that you get in the side from putting the top down wrong twice. Yeah, these are.
Yeah, I tried to clean up the plastic, and mine is all kind of amber, and I don't know a solution for that other than to replace it.
Well, yeah, if you take it to the guy that does auto upholstery in your hometown, find him, and he'll just take the old one out and stitch a new one in. It's a lot cheaper than buying a whole new top. Okay, let's see. I was doing some gasoline research today and found a site that might be useful in Canada. That's the Pure Gas. We got that already. Doug Miller. Dryer softener sheets work well to keep rodents out. Use them in the trunk, engine, interior. Yep, dryer sheets and what was oil of strawberry? What would Gloria? Would you guys?
It was peppermint oil in a bowl.
Yeah. Okay.
And we put cotton balls in there too.
Yeah.
And,
so anything that's got a real pungent odor apparently is what's there. So Martin Heisel, I've heard of using dryer sheets to keep mice out. Apparently they don't like the smell. You can end up with a nice smelling car in the spring. That's what we're after. So, and then Chaz, everybody's got a link on here, but I can't tell what the link is. Car Cover USA. So it's about envelopes and so forth into which you can drive your car. Mr. Dalton's written here, Gerald Dalton, kept my car in a friend's barn 1 year, and as soon as I opened the door to get it out in the spring, a mouse ran across my lap. Oh my gosh, as soon as I was seated, I opened the trunk, and my pouch to hold the tonneau bars was chewed into a big fur ball, and the trunk smelled like mouse piss until I painted the car a year later. It's just dreadful, those little tiny rodents. I mean, they live out there with Bambi and all those other nice little animals and prance around in the woods all day long, but do not come in my garage. No, I got
And what I do on my garage is I take that plastic cardboard, and I'll take a 4 or 6 inch stove bolt, put up through the bottom of it with a nut on, and I'll go to Tractor Supply and get the chunks that have a hole in it, and I'll slide them right down over the stove bolts, and I throw them on the floor underneath the car, and I can see if anything is being chewed around the base of the car, and I replace them as necessary.
Okay.
And I haven't had any mice in the car in a few years.
That's the bottom line. So or you got to get a cat. So dryer sheets are probably better. Let's see, ASCII Man. I always thought this was the one that would be the ultimate. So here's the car capsule. So we got a couple envelope ideas here. Damp trap, DAMP, TRAP, damp trap. It was calcium carbide, right? It's something like that sucks the moisture out of the air. Howard says, cover the car for winter or not. If you do cover it, you're covering it to protect it against mechanical damage. I mean, no, God hates horizontal surfaces, right? He likes to have us fill them. So if you have a car that's uncovered, pretty soon there's something on it and something else, and then something's balanced between those two things, and then too much gets on there and it slides and something scrapes and you damage your paint. So if you put a car cover on it, it's got some body to it. It helps protect. That's all. That's all.
One thing I mentioned about car covers is that mice and rodents love enclosed spaces. So if you put a car cover on there, they love it even more than if it's uncovered. So what I've had to do is, like down in Florida, leave the bonnet open like 4 inches, leave the trunk open about 4 inches, leave the doors open like just a crack, and they don't like those open spaces as much.
Okay. That's a conundrum. How do you cover the car and have it open? Yeah, that's funny. So, okay. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how tight you try to get it, you can't keep them out. You can only make it inhospitable for them to be there. So
The other thing regarding having the top up is mice love chewing enclosed tops and things. So if you have it up, they won't chew it.
it is so maddening, especially, I mean, we put a lot of tops on cars, hundreds of tops. And sure enough, next season, somebody would come in with something that the size of your fingernail chewed through. That's right in the middle, right in the middle. No, it's like, what can you do? And say, well, you know, for $2, we'll take a piece of material and glue it to it. You know, it's like nothing else you can do except buy another top, you know. Oh gosh.
John, another thing about car covers, you got to be cautious because what you're doing is you're trapping the moisture in the car.
Absolutely.
So if you're going to use a car cover, even if it's just cloth, I think you really need to use a lot of desiccant.
Well, you don't let it touch the ground.
That's right, too.
You gotta have ventilation under the car. Absolutely. Yeah, I just.
You know, my solution.
Drive it.
Drive the P Dookie out of it all year. Well, who cares if it's cold? You can always put on jackets and heated gloves.
That's where I'm going to be tomorrow. Even though they say it's going to be 70, it's going to be a cold 70 tomorrow around here.
It was 42 when we took off on Sunday morning, and that was a warm day.
They don't put salt on your roads, do they, Judd?
They do if we have snow, which is about every third year.
Yeah.
But
where are you from, John?
John,
where are you from?
Judd's from South Carolina.
Right.
So it's not fair. I'm from Michigan, where it gets so cold that they sometimes don't use salt. They got to use sand because salt only works down to about 15 or 10 degrees. So, which is where 0 Fahrenheit came from. That was as cold as Dr. Fahrenheit could get with ice, alcohol, and salt. And the human body at 100, he missed. Most of it's 98.6 now, but that was the range of his scale from the coldest you get in the lab to the human body temperature. That's where the 100 degrees, first 100 degrees comes from. Anyway, Ben Andrews, my cars have battery cutoff switches on the negative lead. I install a battery tender wire lead and have it go out of the battery cover lid, easy to route the charging unit wires in winter, out a door or window gap or something. The bonus of having the lead is you can get a USB connector meant for motorcycles with a built-in on-off switch that lets you plug the charger into your phone without bothering with a cigar lighter adapter. So anyway, that's some chat there. That's Ben Andrews' comment about charging. Time capsule, we got car capsule, let's see, what else we got here going on? Startron is much better than stable. Startron. And I know Mike, who worked for me, and then for Forrest, when I turned my business over to Forrest at Rusty Moose Garage, Mike liked something, I can't remember what, maybe it was Startron. Maybe it was Startron instead of stable. And here we got another one here having to do with, I'm using 4 of these. These are battery maintenance, the maintenance deals. I'm using 4 of these, and I started about 5 or 6 years ago and have not had to buy a battery since. Just a minute. Oh, I thought I was going to have to sneeze. DQ
Why
everybody.
on the battery tender, John, real quick? It's inconvenient if your car won't start, but a lot of y'all probably have electric start generators. And that's one that you really need to put a battery tender on. Because you don't start that but about every 2 or 3 months or years. And I sent my wife to start ours. I said, just push the button, it'll start, but not with the battery dead.
What's that, your snow blower?
Oh, this is a generator. We do have ice storms, and the ice will bring down the power lines, the trees, and so we all have generators, and most of them are electric start and have a battery to start it, but you don't exercise that as often as you exercise a car.
Yep. DQ'd everybody. We put condoms on motorcycle mufflers, keeps the moisture and moisture out. Plus something to talk about. Better safe than sorry. Sounds like their advertising line. Barry Jacobs, when changing the oil at the end of the summer and the spring, that was at the end of the summer. Tom Wisely, new hoses. Oh, this is the one that we talked about, trying to figure out why the car wouldn't stop. And we went all the way from a frozen brake pedal. That's a very good idea from Tim, from most recently from Lagos. And I can't imagine that the brake shuttle valve would have anything to do with it, but it's free to do. Although I think he said on that one that they'd shut it down. So it's probably the pads. Interesting to find out. So just a second here. The head now he's got an ancillary question here. The headlights are fine, but no driving lights. Do I replace my lighting switch? By driving lights, I mean parking lights, and it's you can go to the fuse box and check the top 2 fuses and see if those are continuous. If there's no power coming into the top 2 fuses, this is 70 through 80 MGB. If there's no power coming into there, then the switch is faulty. So. DQ, what is greasing the fittings? That means buying a grease gun with a tube of grease with a big handle on it, and there's 6 grease fittings on the front of an MGB, and 2 or 3, there are 3 on the drive shaft. There might be 1 on the handbrake cable. Is there any other grease fitting in the car? What am I missing? T-type, there's a lot more of them. And given a couple strokes of grease to each fitting, so that these things that don't have a recirculating oil supply stay greased. Rob Nichols, my heater blower squeals when I turn it on. Is there any other cure other than replacement? Well, turn it on, turn it off. Turn it on, turn it off. Turn it on, it won't squeal. So you have to suffer the squeal for the and then it goes. If you take it out, out of the housing, and you can drip some oil. Just try to drip some oil into the armature, right underneath the squirrel cage, and you can get bold and put a lot of oil there. You're not going to hurt it.
Yeah. Now there's bronze bushings in there, isn't there?
Yep, and they're oilite bushings, and there's a shaft that goes through the bushing, and it's just galled. That's all. Yeah. It wants oil. And if you take the motor apart, which you can do, there's a felt that goes around those bronzes. Then you just oil them up, let them soak and everything. But getting that thing back together is just a bugger because of the way the brushes are. It's really complicated, and not complicated, just difficult. That's all.
Yeah. No, I've got one in the car. I got a 69B. I got one in the car and it squeals, and I got a spare and it also squeals. So I took it apart, and there's no felt in either end of those shafts.
Okay.
And I'm wondering whether it's just a high-speed vibration and the bushings are worn out.
That could be the case, but if you let them soak in oil, I bet that'll do it. I mean, oil's the
What about using like the red grease?
yes, but that isn't going to penetrate. That isn't going to penetrate the bushing. You want something that's going to soak into that bushing. I think that bushing is oilite, which is a structure of bronze and oil.
Oh, okay.
So let it soak for a bit.
Oh, okay.
69
Just
did that. 69s and 68, 69s. I don't know. Maybe they changed the heater motor then. That's all. Modern ones don't squeal. Not like those. Many of those squeal. I don't design.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering if there's. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I mean, I've tried it and it worked out for a little while, and then it started squealing again after a very short time. So let it soak longer.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, when they tell you, the oilite bushings that are in the engine, like the bushing on the release bearing fork,
yeah,
and the spigot bushing in the back of the crankshaft. The whole deal is you let them soak in oil for a day or two.
Oh, okay. Okay. No, I've just squirted it in, and
or if you heat it up, you can cut that time down, but you might as well just let it soak.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll try that. Thank you.
Okay. That's
Hey,
cheaper,
John.
Cheaper than buying another one. Yes.
On the design of the blowers that have the felt along with the bushing, instead of taking it, I have one in an early B,
right.
Peter.
Drill a hole.
Drill a hole, and you don't
use
take
a
it apart.
hypodermic needle. Oh my gosh, yes.
3-in-1 oil. But now you got me thinking, because on my 69 MGC, I have a blower mode, a blower for the front carburetor. It looked like it was the same type of motor or squirrel cage blower, but if there's no felt in that design, then what I did, I drilled a hole in that one and just squirted in, hoping it would, get that one freed up. It's freed up, but maybe it's like the gentleman who's got the 68 without felt in it. And maybe I got some oil on the bushing, maybe I didn't.
I may be thinking about earlier models too, MGAs or something or other. I mean, as those things went along, they took away more and more of the maintenance, longevity parts of the assemblies.
Well, no, felt's a good idea, and drilling a little hole, water won't get in there, and it takes that sealed for life thing, and it gives you the ability to maintain it.
Thank you. Let's see, what else have we got here? I've got a 72 Midget. Here we go, Jeff Herman. For the original 1275cc engine, when the car was new, it used regular leaded gasoline. What type of gasoline should I be using today? You don't have any option. You got to use gasohol unless you go to that pure gas. Are you still on, Jeff? Maybe Jeff's still on, maybe not, but.
Yes, I'm on.
Oh, hey, great. Okay, well, you don't have, you can't use leaded gas, of course, because there is none. And so,
what about the additive?
No, that's just snake oil. So, just use 89 octane. Just use 89 octane from the pump. Tune it so it runs there. And someday, if it burns an exhaust valve, then when you have the head redone, you have hardened seats installed. How long have you owned the car?
I've had the car for 7 years.
Okay, well, somebody else may have already put hardened seats in it.
My thought is the car hasn't been on the road since '86.
Yeah, that's about the time that we're losing the gasoline, losing the lead in the gasoline. Yeah. So So you just drive it, just keep, just make sure you got 12,000 flash on your valves. And so that if something starts to move or something or other, you don't burn it prematurely. But someday, if maybe it burns a valve, then you get hardened seats installed, and then you continue using that 89 gas, but there isn't any other way around it. So tetraethyl lead is illegal because it's so dangerous. So that's gone. And stuff like re-lead, I don't know what the stuff is. You can buy octane enhancer. You can jack the octane on your gasoline, which you don't need to do. You can buy octane enhancer, and right at the end of leaded gasoline, the federal government allowed the manufacturers to call their gasoline leaded if it had phosphorus in it. So I don't know if that re-lead has phosphorus or what, but everybody else just uses 89 octane. So
I'm under the impression that boats use leaded gas.
No, they use non-alcohol gas.
Is that better to use than the one in the gas station?
Yes, if you can find it. So either go on your computer or go on your iPhone or something and find Pure Gas, PURE-gas.com, and you'll find the stations around you that sell non-alcohol gasoline.
Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
But really, if you drive the car enough to burn the gasoline out, the alcohol doesn't do any harm.
Yep.
It's a problem if you leave it sitting there and it hydroscopes and sucks in moisture, or it sits in your rubber hoses and eats them up. But if you're burning it, I mean, I fill up my tank every week, so it never stays longer than a week.
You got to put more miles on your TD than anybody else, John. Although there's some campaigners out at that GOF West, Abingdon Rough Riders, Safari Touring Association. Some of those guys.
My TD came to me with a metal thing on the dashboard that was the 1970 GOF West. Car came out of San Diego.
Okay. Let's see, ASCII man. I'm trying to get a computer that runs DOS 622 because I got this program I want to use. I just can't find anything like it out here today, and it exports everything in ASCII. Anyway, ASCII man. My other car says every 30,000 miles and maximum 3-year intervals. I'm not sure.
That was regarding coolant. That was regarding coolant.
Oh, all right. Okay.
So I just picked, I have a copy of my owner's manual for my Saab, and it just said that's officially part of the service schedule. And so that was, based on the old green antifreeze. So I've always, that seems like a good rule of thumb, 3 years, and they think it's no longer effective.
Sounds great. Thank you. Although DQ weighs in here and says 10 years is the shelf life and not in use. But oh my gosh, I remember we'd get cars in with the nastiest smelling coolant. Oh my gosh, it just reeked. And now there are firms that take old coolant, process it, and sell it back to you. How nice is that? Geez, I was just in an airport in LAX. It was LAX. I was in the men's room, and above the urinal there was a sign that said, these toilets use recycled, and that was in italics, recycled water. And I thought, what water on this planet hasn't been recycled? There's no such thing as new water. Trained everybody, modern coolant antifreeze will have a pH of only 8 to 8.5. So that's about the alkalinity of a white egg. So modern coolant antifreeze has a pH of about 8 to 8.5. So it's just a little on the alkaline side by 1.5 points. So interesting. Now, let's see, Jim Simino says they make electronic testers to test the boiling point of brake fluid, which tells you how much moisture has been absorbed. So you can buy one of those, or I'll go back to what Judd just said about using gasoline. And if you bleed the brakes, if you bleed your brakes frequently, just keep that moving through there, then the water that gets into the brake system and separates from the brake fluid and sits beneath it, there won't be enough of it to rust the bottom of the brake master cylinder. Let's see, Bradley Schwartz, do you advise, just a minute here, do you advise removing spark plugs and adding oil to the cylinders for storage? You can do that, sure you can. But remember that when you start it up, the next season, you're gonna have a lot of smoke that comes out. Just that's all. That's one of those things to put on the list. Like when you put the plug up the tailpipe or something. So you can do that for longer storage. Sure. I mean, there are people. There are people. Read that article that I've got about storage. I mean, there are people that take their seats out of the. It's take them in the house so the animals won't get them. It's like, okay, all right, that's cool. I don't know if anybody's ever put their car up on 4 jack stands with pizza pans with used motor oil to keep the rodents out, but hey. Let's see, stable MSDS shows that it is a petroleum distillate. No mention of ethanol. So Henry has added here that whatever stable is, it's some refinement of crude oil. It's a petroleum distillate, and there's not a mention of ethanol in it. So Bill Rosevear also suggests fogging the engine, taking the plugs out, and spraying something into the cylinders. Fogging oil, which is just oil under some spray, or you can just put oil in there and then hit the starter motor and just slop it all around on the inside there. And DQ says, do you reinstall the plugs or leave them open? Please reinstall them. We had a guy come up to us, so many years ago with a TF, I've told the story before, who'd taken the spark plugs out and then 10 years later decided to continue with a tune-up. But by this time the engine was frozen. Now we got it thawed out. I've never had an engine I couldn't unfreeze. But oh my gosh, what a lot of work that took. So we got another capsules here and shelters. Mr. Curl, Gigi Curl, after listening to all the comments about cold and snow, I'm dang glad I live in North Texas. Okay, all right. If we get snow or sub-freezing weather, it only lasts a few days. I keep my 4 cars in a shed, and I try to play with them out there daily. There's a comment here about AMSOIL. AMSOIL makes a gasoline stabilizer. Mr. Dalton says it's good stuff. I'm a dealer and use most all AMSOIL products except for the tranny fluid, as all AMSOILs have detergents. I use 2050 Castrol GTX engine-wise, and I use AMSOIL's Z-Rod high zinc synthetic 1040. So AMSOIL does make a bunch of products. Bill Weekly, and he's from Ann Arbor, so he's right just a stone's throw from me. My solution to winter storage is keep the MGs in a heated garage. They're usually on jack stands to protect the tires and to make them available to work on underneath. There we go. Get too tired of the snow and everything, fire up the heater and go out in the garage. So here we got $329 for the Rhino shelter, another car cover. So Jim Simino says, I've had a power booster that was failing, giving the exact problem of a good stopping, of good pedal and poor stopping. So this refers to the gentleman from Massachusetts who had to use all of the muscles in his legs to get his car to stop, but he does not have a booster. But a 75 through 80 has got a booster unless the booster's been installed prior to that. Some of the British cars do. Mothballs in the car to deter pests? Question mark. Yes. Put them in a container. I mean, open to the air, but not just loose. We used to use stockings, but nobody, I guess women don't wear stockings anymore. We used to have lots of them around. And use naphthalene mothballs, not paradichlorobenzene. As long as you can stand it. But if you don't like that, and we got Irish Spring soap, we've got cinnamon oil. I can't remember whatever Bob and Gloria said, and Irish Spring soap. Anything with a real thick smell to it, I guess. In Florida, I use them to keep the squirrels away. So. And now someone says they keep the alligators away in Florida. So we are running at 9:15 here, and I've still got quite a few more questions, but I'm going to run through this stuff as fast as I can. Question, I had new brake pads and rotors, calipers installed, new brake shoes, wheel drums. My brakes make this awful squeaking noise when they're warmed up. What's the problem? 73 MGB. That sounds like something my daughter would have written to me at the beginning of this past summer. I don't know what her guy put on there. Is it the V8 pads, some other pads? I'll try to remember to ask her and see if she knows, or I'll call the guy that did the work in California, and he's got some non-squeaking brakes out there, pads, because the problem is the pads. The switch that MG used for the pressure differential switch is a Ford part. If the switch is wet, the brake fluid with brake fluid is because the valve is leaking past the O-rings, and you can fix it. The switch isn't sealed. Pat says fix it. Don't leave it open. Never jury rig your brakes. And he also says that light is there for a reason, to let you know that your brakes are faulty. DQ, John, I've got a 78 and a 1980 MGB. Turn signals don't really work. Sometimes they do, more likely at higher revs. Any thoughts? Yes. The turn signal flasher is a bimetal strip that heats up and then breaks, cools, makes contact, lights up the lights, heats up, breaks, I can keep going. But anyway, it goes back and forth. It's a mechanical switch, but that requires that a certain amount of energy goes through the lamps. So you haven't got enough energy, enough electricity going through the lamps to make that turn signal work. So snap on the hazards. Stand at the front of the car, look at the lights winking at the same time, stand at the back. And if one of them appears to be dimmer than the other, one of the bulbs appears to be dimmer than the other, it's either because you got a faulty ground and the light can't get enough current through it because of that, or it needs a different bulb, a different 1157 bulb. Now in the back it's 1156. Or you can simply buy an EL12. It's either an EL12 or an EL13 from Napa, and substitute that for your flasher, and they will work whether you've got one bulb, half a bulb working, 30 bulbs. They're great electronic flashers, and they flash at the same rate that all the other cars do, waiting to turn left in front of you. So Bart, I'm getting close to putting my first MGB engine. You told me that you have an engine building video, but I can't seem to find it. No, I don't have the video. I've got instructions. So Barto, send me an email, and I will send you the instructions, it just a list, another list. Combine that with all the lists you already have, but it does put stuff in order, and it's how to assemble up the engine, but it's not a video. Gil Dupre, change from negative. I don't know, Gil, are you still on? I don't understand what you mean here.
I think he's talking about my MGA with the bad generator, and he's saying put a alternator in it. Dynamometer makes a
yeah,
alternator
sure.
inside a generator case.
I couldn't make sense of that. Yeah, yep. So those are if you're Mr. Original, right? If you're Mr. Original, you can't use a dynamometer because it's not original. But if you want it to look original, you want to cheat, and you want to have a generator on your car, but you really want to have an alternator, then you buy this dynamometer, which is a long, I mean, it looks exactly like a generator, but it's an alternator, which means you got to work on the inside of your control box, because that isn't going to work it correctly like it should.
You just ignore it altogether.
Huh?
You just bypass the voltage regulator altogether.
But you're not going to bypass it because you want it to look original, right?
So you leave it in there, but you theoretically you can just take all the guts out. Yes. But actually, you just take the wires. You just disconnect the wires.
Yeah, you got to jump between your A leads or B leads. Yeah. So, John Art, everybody, don't use mothballs. It's a pesticide. It's not good to breathe it because it takes a lot to get rid of the smell. Okay. Naphthalene pesticide. Okay. All right. That's interesting. Robbed, everybody. My 1969 MGC Kingpins rocks about 3/16 when I grab the tire and force it around. I want to tighten this up. I can't find a reamer. So if I buy new bushings, can you outline what I need to tell the local machine shop? Oh my gosh, there's a quick $500. Would it be wise to buy new Kingpins just in case the original Kingpins are toast? So anyway, Rob, are you still on? We're down to 87. We're getting pretty thin here. MGC.
Yeah, I'm here, John.
Okay, MGC Kingpins are obviously very different from MGB Kingpins. So they're the larger diameter, distances are different. The last person I knew that had an MGC reamer was Forrest at Rusty Moose Garage, because I had one and I gave him all my tools. So maybe Forrest has one at Rusty Moose Garage. You got a pencil?
I'm writing it down.
616-301-2888.
Did you use it in the past and it worked fine?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because I read somebody said that the factory tool actually made the clearance a little too big.
Okay, maybe his factory tool did. Maybe mine did, and I didn't notice it.
It was an individual from Australia. He said he set the clearance to 1/1000th of an inch, and somebody else said to make it 3/1000.
Yeah, 1/1000 is pretty tight. I mean, if you get a differential in temperature, all of a sudden, that's pretty snug. 3/1000 is your sort of go-to for free play and that kind of stuff. But if you're going to take it to a machine shop, they're going to press the bushings in, and they're going to measure the Kingpin, and they're going to align ream it. So
they could do it, but
oh yeah,
I'm just worried that these are so hard to get now. They're saying that the aftermarket parts aren't as good as they used to be, and there was a company called Q&H or H&Q or something.
Yeah, Quinton Hazel, and
they don't make them anymore.
Yeah, I believe that.
So I'm getting worried. I need to do a preemptive strike and at least have pieces around, since this thing's slopping around a little bit.
So if you're Mr. Machinist and you're jammed up, then you take the Kingpins you reduce the diameter ever so slightly until you clean it up enough to be able to use it. And then you get an undersized bushing to go in there. From where, I don't know. There must be places you can get bushings. So that, you know, there's a couple different, but you can't use oilite because of the banging that and the forces that are going on that will crumble the oilite bushings. So they have to be a true brass bushing. But chances are, you know, I mean, you can do something. And Kurt probably has a set available for $900 or something.
He passed away. I don't know if he's selling anything now.
I didn't know that.
He passed away in August, and I talked to his widow yesterday.
For a fact, and she said there's somebody in
figure everything out, and they're not selling anything at this point.
Okay. Oh my gosh,
So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, 74 years old, quite
Ooh.
Sudden, I believe. Although he did die in a hospital, they said.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm getting nervous now as a C owner. Where am I going to get parts? Where am I going to get parts?
Well, yeah, understand. Well, that's too bad. Jeez.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see if they open anything up.
And you can always have your kingpins welded and ground back down to a slightly oversized. So I mean, there's a couple different ways to go at it, But
you started the conversation off with, oh my God, there's $500 in what you're describing now is.
Well, at the machine shop, yeah. You go into a machine shop and it's like, they haven't done this before. They got to dick around and find all these parts and line it up and do it. And it'll be a nice job, but oh my gosh. Yeah.
I'll leave the kingpins in my wallet with them.
Yeah. Oh,
okay. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Garrity, Pat Garrity, John, I used to think like you in regards to the weird tracks and engine bearings. A lecture by a guy smarter than me about the oil corrected my thinking. Tiny air bubbles exploding during combustion blow the babbitt off the shell in those weird patterns. Well, surprise, surprise, the solution is the same. Change the oil. It gets dirty and the additives wear out. I swear though, because they always come right. I'd argue with that guy. Well, that's what I've always believed, that it's I'll have to find some. I'll find some I got them downstairs. I just got to find them. They're uncanny. They're so ugly. Geez. So David Massey, Jeff has a zip out window in the back. Jeff has a zip out back window. Jeff who?
Buy new tops from Jeff Zorn, Little British Car.
All right. Okay. Okay. And he's got those for the B's and the A's?
Yep.
Okay. Now, yeah, you got to have, if you're going to drive an MG in the hot weather, you either got to have one of those Bimini tops. Those are kind of slick, but I just heard that the guy that made those, I don't know, he got sick. He quit making them, something or other. It looks straight enough to make. A lot easier to write a check. A lot easier just to give them your card number. And just
Jeff sources them. Jeff does have moss, but he also sources them from England.
Okay. Thank you.
Special colors too. Yeah.
Okay. Doug says that that 303 products that we talked about for saving soft tops and stuff like that, West Marine sells 303 products as well as desiccants and portable dehumidifiers. So anyway, a marine store is a good place to find some of the stuff you might want to use when you want to have your MG nice and dry. Should you swamp the entire engine with a WD-40? Yes. DQ asks, should he just one whole can? Just make it drip. It can't hurt but help.
That WD stands for water displacement. And so it's not really a lubricant, it's to get rid of water.
It is, but it leaves us, once the carrier evaporates, it leaves this sort of film, and it protects all the underbonnet stuff from oxidation. You know, your carburetors won't get white spots on them, and the hose clamps won't get rust on them. So. Ben Andrews, my cars have battery cutoff switches on the, oh, wait a minute, didn't I already read this? Yes, already read this. Yep. So sad to be discussing seasonal car storage topics. Funny. So David Massey, Southeast Florida on October 1st. I get my car out too hot in summer to drive. When you walk out the door at 7:30 a.m. and it's already 82 degrees. Yeah, okay. So, but now it's getting to be that weather, I expect. So here we've got Back to Black from Mother's Car Care. Mother's, I remember that, Mother's Car Care. Nico Genius battery chargers switch automatically to battery maintenance. So that's Nico Genius. So we're getting down here. NOCO, N-O-C-O. Yes, then my next question here is about grease fittings, and you pump grease into everything except the rack and pinion. It looks like a grease fitting. Your grease gun will fit it. Guess what? It's supposed to take oil. So if you pump it full of grease, your car gets really sluggish. There's a better way to introduce grease, and that is through the cap right above the pinion. I've got a YouTube video up about how to do that. I'm just sort of speeding along now because we're at 11 or at 9:31. It's getting late here. Can you recommend an MG mechanic in the Ottawa, Toronto area? I don't know of one, but there is a huge club up there in the GTA and the Toronto MG Car Club. So find them and find out who they're using. I haven't been up there for a couple of years. Usually when I go up, we go to someone's shop where MGs are being worked on, but I don't know of anybody. You could go on Barney Gaylord's site, mgaguru.com, M-G-A-G-U-R-U. It's an MGA site, but he's got lots and lots of shops from all over the United States and Canada, all kinds of shops. And just whether he's visited them and sometimes a comment about them or something. Is there leaded gas available for small planes? There is leaded gas available for small airplanes. So yes, you can do that. You can go to the airport and you can fill up your car, but remember that is not legal. It's not legal because you're not paying road tax. Minor little thing, but anyway, some people do that. You can buy racing gas too. Ethanol gas goes bad in 3 months. That's what John R. says. I believe you that. We got some more comments here from Pete. 74 MGB suspension problem. After changing out my rear leaf springs and adding the Moss lowering kit, I found the car veers left when accelerating and then veers right when you take your foot off the gas. Okay, so the problem here is that the U-bolts are not tight enough. Okay, you haven't got the rear axle tight enough to the leaf springs, and the rear axle is moving left and right, driving like a high-low. He said he found eccentric holes elongated holes in the front mounts. I added hardened washers to the front spring mount, squared the rear axle and welded washers in that position. The car still veers off, but not as much. So just get those U-bolts tighter. That's the only way out of it. There's some other arms that the VA guys use to keep the rear axle from spinning. When you put a lot of horsepower to it. I can't think of what they're called, but it's an extra set of thing. But I just get that you get those U-bolts tighter. That's what the problem is. Here we go. DQ, I'm thinking of a winter project. Is it worth installing twin SUs on a 1980 MGB? Yes. Yes, you'll like it a lot more than your existing ones. Do I have a video on it? No. And Pat Garrity says you need to change both manifolds and the front exhaust pipe, the front down pipe, but the difference is amazing. So we're down to it. We got all the way through. It's 9:35. We've got 77 diagrams still waiting. So anyway, my closing comment. If you haven't yet, please go on my website and push the PayPal button and say, oh my gosh, I had so much fun tonight. You know, this guy deserves something. When is our next meeting? Our next meeting is, I probably have it already published someplace, but looks like it's about the 6th of November. Does that make sense? Sure. That's 2 weeks from now, 6th of November. But as always, I send out a note, you know, to remind everyone. And I did think about accessories. Last time I said, what should we talk about? And someone said accessories, but I haven't got my head wrapped around a real succinct presentation yet for how to talk about accessories. But that's kind of fun, and it ranges. Oh my gosh. I mean, started in 1945, that started in 1950 with Rodent in the back of Rodent Track magazine. And there's all kinds of sterling silver ashtrays, grab bars, and motifs, and funny little wooden cubbies for MGAs. Oh my gosh, all kinds of stuff. So anyway, gentlemen, I'm going to change my view so I can see gallery. And everyone's still on. So thank you very much for coming on tonight. Pat Garrity, keep me in mind when you hit the USPS, you know. And that would be kind. Ron Nugent, I was just out by you, but I didn't have time to come see you. I was down at GOF West, and then I was at my daughter's for two days, and it turns out when I got the MGB GT back, of course I don't have any brake lights, so I ordered a switch to go out to her, but that's why I couldn't continue driving her car around. Otherwise, I might have come up to see you. Anyway, Alan Batchelder, nice to see you. Pleasure. Oh, you're muted, Alan, but
nice to see you, John. You
yeah.
bet. Enjoyed it. Good
Thanks.
job tonight.
John Uhas, nice to see you. Thanks very much. Judd, always nice. David Massey, Doug.
See you later, John.
Thank you, John.
Enjoyed it.
Price,
Thanks.
Pete Price, thanks for sending me those occasional articles about the new MGs and everything. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Even though I don't respond timely. So, yeah, Tom Weisel, thanks for being here. Rob, thanks for being here. Barney,
John, 186 tonight, I think. 186.
186.
I
186.
saw 187.
Oh.
I saw 187.
Oh.
John, it's like an auction. Do I hear 188?
I have 186.
Okay.
Somebody slipped in while we both were watching it. This 187.
Somebody from my coin club probably accidentally came out and thought, what's this? And winked right back off again. But here, I forgot about Doug. Hang on just a second.
Marty, thanks for all your help, as always.
You're welcome.
this is such a cut and dry issue. If you have any sense of decency, if you have a heart, mind, and soul, and a conscience.
Back in the days of the AMGBA, they were making the movie. Oh, they did it at a closed up mall with no, the guys from Saturday Night Live. What was that? What was the name of the movie? Anyway, this is
Blues Brothers.
What's that?
The Blues Brothers.
Yes, Blues Brothers. This is a Chicago. This is a Chicago policeman's hat from that movie. So how about that? I got you. I got you tonight, Doug.
No, you don't, John. Not yet. I'm going to put on my deer stalker.
Oh yeah, all right, okay. You win.
Good for the winter. I can lower the ear flaps when it gets really cold. So when I come to Grand Rapids in the wintertime and visit you, I'll show up wearing this.
Okay.
Of course, I can turn it sideways and put my hand and be like Napoleon. So anyway,
you
thanks for all you do.
Hey, as usual, Doug, you got me beat.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, John.
Hey, thanks a lot. Everyone, thank you very much for being on tonight. Nice night. So
Yeah, thanks, John.
I'm missing Rodolfo from Monterrey, Mexico. He hasn't been on in a couple of months. So Barney Gaylord, you're on tonight, but your screen is black. So I don't. You must. You see,
Yeah, I came in a little late and I couldn't get the camera working. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say it must be real dark where you are or something, but yeah, okay. All right. Okay. Right.
Hey, John, can I ask a quick question? Can you go over the proper type of lift to work on the car, like the intermediate scissor lift, that kind of thing? Any thoughts to what would be good with your accessory stuff?
Oh boy, if you're gonna buy a lift, just go whole hog and buy a 2-column lift that's got adjustable arms that come out, and you can lift the whole car up by its frame, so you can do anything you want to it. I mean, there's all different types of lifts. You can get a drive-on lift, and then you can't do any suspension work, not easily. Not without a jack on the lift and all that kind of stuff. It's great for changing oil and everything, but generally speaking, you want to do more. The scissors lifts are okay, but they only bring it up so far, and there's all that stuff going on underneath, so you can't get underneath real easily, and not easily.
I was looking for that for the suspension and just the ease of tires and that kind of stuff. I don't have the headroom in the garage. I've got only a 10-foot ceiling anyway. So
the scissors, you can get a scissors lift that'll bring the car up. If you can get it up to close to chest height, up to your chest here, where you can work on stuff right here. That's really handy. But the scissors lift, but I don't have a preferred scissors lift.
well, I was concerned about, the width and all of that, making sure that the cars go on well and they stay balanced. I don't want to rank on something and have a tip or something like that either, So I'm looking for, I'm not looking to take the cheap way out. I'm just trying to get something that's going to be respectable.
Let's put that in a question for next time, unless you're chomping at the bit.
No hurry.
And we'll poll the people who are on next time, people who have a hoist in their garage, and just see what's out there and what people have to say about it. So
thank you for your time. Thank you again.
Hey, you're very welcome.
John, I wanted to ask you about how hard is it to rebuild an overdrive unit? Or is it worth it? It's not very easy.
It's not very hard.
No.
I can't do it with my eyes closed. But who's asking?
Bob Cook.
Oh, we can work something out.
Yeah, my overdrive it works okay when it's cold, and then if it works fine if when I shift in overdrive after it's warmed up, if I just ease my foot up off the gas a little bit, it shifts in fine. And other than that, it works fine, but when it gets heated up, it kind of slips in like when your clutch slips. That's how it slips in the gear.
Yeah,
So it's wearing out.
No, just talk to me. We'll work out a deal.
All right.
You can come up, we can do it, but I got this huge project I'm doing, this Midget that I've had for way too long. And I promised the owner that I wouldn't do anything else until his car is done. But I'm working on it diligently, like almost every day, so.
This sounds, overdrive sounds like a winter project.
Absolutely. All right, well, now we're down to 46, so unless I hit the end, everyone's gonna stay on for another half an hour. So anyway, thanks for everybody for being on here. I really appreciate it.
Good night, all.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everyone.
Really nice to see you.
Thanks, John.
Night on.
Yeah.
Thanks, John. Have a good night. All right, good night.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
John.
Good night. Hey,
Good night.
very,
Thank you
very
very
much.
much. Night.
Right.